I didn't want to get into the elongated details.
Right, right.
I try to keep it flaccid, and I don't want to get too crazy with it, you know?
You don't want to make it hard.
Yeah, no, don't make it hard.
Well, this is getting
A
messy.
softer approach is much better.
Hey, I'm Carson Porter. The wildest thing that's ever happened to me is I had a commercial specialist close a policy, and 5 minutes later got a dick pic from our client. And so I had to turn around and talk to that client. We went ahead and canceled his policy, and then he sued us for it. So what a wild time, but y'all know what? I'm still an insurance dude.
Boom! Well, that's a hell of a intro story.
Just freaking went through it and wrapped it up, and it's boom.
I didn't want to get into the elongated details.
Right, right.
You just threw it in, got in there, and got out, pulled out.
Yeah, I try to keep it flaccid, and I don't want to get too crazy with it, you know?
You don't want to make it hard.
Yeah, no, don't make it hard.
Well, this is getting
A
messy.
softer approach is much better. Anyway, tell us a little bit about your background, Carson. As hard as it was to become an agent.
Yeah, it was throbbingly hard. Well, so I actually was born and raised in the automotive repair sector. That's where I had my first two businesses. Little over 10 years ago, decided to get into insurance for a whole bunch of reasons. We can go down that road or stay away from it if you want to. When I first got into insurance, I sucked. I started as a captive multi-line, doing home, auto, life.
What color?
Red, white, and blue.
Took me a second there.
Yeah, Big Eagle. Anyways, actually was a really great place. I think had I gone independent right off the bat, I would have failed. A lot of people want to crap talk on the captive model, but you know what the captive model does better is it cultivates agents.
100%.
There's just so many more resources there for that, but it comes at a cost, right? It comes at a very dear cost. But yeah, the first 5 years of my career were spent there, and was able to figure out how to sell life insurance very well. I get a lot of attention for that now, life insurance and annuities. But we also grew a multiple $1 million property casualty book of business in less than 5 years as well. Left there, went independent. I've done well as an independent. When I did that, I went primarily just life insurance and annuities only. And we're actually just getting back. I've got somebody in my agency with property casualty experience that wants to head up an operation. So we're actually diving back in. So lots of fun. We do lots of things. We run a mastermind. We call it Agnostic Mastermind. We don't care what carrier, company, or IMO, or whoever you're with. We're here to help you. Screw your bias. Screw this product's better than that. Let's just, talk realism. Help real agents make real money in the real world right where they're at. And a lot of that, again, is around life insurance and annuities. And that's what we do. I don't do anything for fun. I work all the damn time. I've got a gorgeous wife that I'm probably going to lose because I don't give her enough attention. I've got the two most that's a joke for anyone listening.
Well, and she doesn't listen, so it's okay, right?
Yeah. It's not like she's going to listen.
And there's no one in Idaho Falls, so.
Dude, right? No, she's the most amazing person ever. I'm so glad that I get to spend my life with her, and that I've gotten to spend this life so she could wake up tomorrow and realize how bad of a decision she made in choosing me. But no, we've got the two most beautiful boys. We do a lot of outdoor stuff. That's me. I like long walks on the beach in the nude. I'm not really fit, so I try and do nighttime walks. What else?
I love it, man. So you live in Idaho Falls. We were just talking.
Yep.
I'm actually looking at Boise, and that's kind of where we left off because it started getting interesting. Craig's wanted us to record. So
I did,
So what do you recommend Boise?
I love Boise. I think Boise's a cool spot. I actually have a really, really good friend. We do a lot of business together. He had a farmer's agency for years, sold that and went into the commercial leads business, and he's killing it. Does a really good job with it, actually. Kelby Steele, if y'all don't know him, you ought to check him out. I'll make an intro if you want.
Kelby, yeah, let's talk to him. He
Kelby's
does commercial
badass.
leads?
Commercial leads, yeah.
Super cool. What kind?
Commercial, business insurance, you know.
Just everything?
Yay and nay. I know when I've talked to him, he prefers captives, but not necessarily because he prefers captives. It's simply because they have their market clarity lists are so much more well dialed down.
Mm.
And that's a lot. It's easier to market to the niches, right?
Yeah.
Versus independents are like, I'll take everything. And
Right.
the wealthy independents don't take everything. They're like, I do, commercial, like I do over the road trucking. I do, business property, and I do, like, you really niche down, and that's the money is really in finding those focus markets. So, yeah, he likes partnering with agencies that will niche down.
Isn't it crazy? Like when you're a captive, all the captives complain about only being able to write whatever, right? And then they go into independent. And I've talked, we've had a lot of clients and talked to a lot of people that will go independent. And then like the complaint is like, we don't know where to place them, or it takes so long to quote with everyone. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you know that you're not supposed to quote with everyone, like 3 people.
Yeah, the
That
most
covers
wealthy
different.
independents that I know, they might have access to, 14 different home and auto carriers. But they don't
Yes.
quote them. They'll drop in Easy Links or Turbo Rate or whatever. They'll run it, and then they'll take like their top 2 or 3 preferreds. As long as those come out quoting decently, they might go finish the quote out real quick, find one that's going to meet or beat what they currently have, and then they'll make a value-based sell on the back end. If nothing, like if it's not one of those top 2 or 3, but they have a carrier they never use, and that carrier's competitive, most of the time, those agencies are just hitting the client back up. Sorry, there's not a lot more we can do. Because even though they could go win the policy on price today, the cost of servicing that policy on the back end, working with a carrier who you're not familiar with their policy, their SOPs, their appetites, it costs a lot of money to do that.
It's just a totally different model in and of itself, right? And how the approach, because we're power growth, right? Leads, telemarketers, the whole thing, blasting activity through the agency. Whereas they're more selective up front once they have a critical mass, right? And then they just kind of, the turn word is not the right word for it, but it is in essence, if somebody comes up for renewal and they're not happy, it's just move them over, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting model, but we did, even as a captive, we kind of stuck to that model. I realized early on, like not from day one, because my first 6 months I almost went bankrupt. But once we really started clicking along and moving with it, we realized, hey, my job isn't to have access to everybody and find a product for the person. My job is to find a person for the product. And so we started using, it was a service back in the day called Quote Fire. It was live transfers and hit and miss. I'll leave the testimonial on the side for now, but we wrote a lot of business by just taking live transfers, and we knew our product really, really well. We could pound a byline quote out in 5 minutes or less. So client's still there on the phone. We're still asking them about, the kids and the ashes of their loved ones on the mantle and all that. And all of a sudden we've got bindable policies ready to go. That was profitable business. Chasing a $2,000 per year account, you're going to make $180 to $250 on per year. Like, you can't quantify your time well that way. So,
Yeah.
Right. I have a question for you. So you're running with a bunch of agents that are running life and annuities and everything. What are you doing these days to cut costs on the front end? Like, to your point of what you were just saying, it's like you could chase down people and build relationships over long periods of time. I mean, but what are you doing to really speed up production?
yeah. So my number one thing, and I know it's hit and miss. I don't buy leads anymore. But I also know agents who buy leads. And if that's your way in, great, do that. I partner with agencies who don't sell life insurance. So I'll take a PNC agency who doesn't sell life insurance, or a Medicare agency or health insurance. And I won't wait for their referrals. I'm not saying screw their referrals, because I love referrals, but I don't trust not their ability, but their willingness to be driven to give me referrals, right? So what I do is I wrap them into a contract. That contract, it wholly protects them. The integrity of their relationship with their client. I'm not going to offload this data to someone else. I'm not going to, But I get a download of their whole book of business. We'll pull 2, 3, 4,000 people at a time. And then we go market to that and cross sell it. $0 up front, small revenue share on the back end.
What does that split look like?
I typically am going to give like 20 to 30% of street level commissions. I get paid quite a bit more than street, but that's not for me to share with somebody else. That's due to my hard work.
Right.
So we'll give them 20 to 30% of something they're not selling anyways, and their competitor might be selling it and stealing their clients. So it increases persistency, increases profitability. They do nothing for it. They just get mailbox money. And it goes, again, a long, long way. So a lot of our partners will end up paying 20, 50, 100,000 per year out to these agencies, money that they weren't getting for lines of business that they weren't representing. And at the same time, again, increasing their productivity, profitability, and persistency is a huge one, because we're reselling them back to their client all the time. Like, hey, yeah, no, we can't help you with your, home and auto insurance. But even if we could, we wouldn't. You're with Jamal. Jamal's got the best damn program on the market. He may not have a good price right now, but Jamal's not the insurance company. Don't beat him up for an insurance company's mistake. Stick with that dude. He's going to take care of you for the rest of forever. Like, we're reselling them on the back end. So there's a lot more than just the check they're getting back in revenue share.
Right.
I love it. Dude, you listen up, captive carriers. I know you got to sell life insurance, but what if you sold life insurance to these people and so did Carson?
Check this out. This is one thing we actually do. Take farmers, for example.
Yeah.
I told y'all, I typically try and keep like carrier names out, but farmers agents, as an example, have a requirement, and it's not a requirement. It's 15 apps per quarter. And if they go 15 apps per quarter, they can get like a 30, 35% bonus on premium.
Yeah.
Plus the data we have on increased persistency. The way I sell life insurance and the way I teach others in this mastermind we have when we sell life insurance, we sell property casualty as well. Like if we're talking about retirement, for example, or whatever, one of the best buffers, liability buffers you can have for your retirement is an umbrella. So if I'm sitting here telling your client that, and I'm like, hey, by the way, $1 million, it's $200 a year. Typically it's very inexpensive. Let's get you talking to your agent again. Oh, it turns out you don't have the underlying limits. Well, now we're going 100, 300 to like 255 or 500 flat combined or total combined limits or whatever to get the underlying, and dropping $1 million. So we're increasing premium for our partners and increasing profitability and productivity on that primary line. And then again, so with farmers agents, we have farmers agents in our program. We have independents in our program who are hungry and aren't getting in front of enough people themselves. And we're like, hey, learn the farmers program and go sell farmers insurance for this farmers agent. Okay. And there's some things there's some key pieces we need to put in line to be compliant with that, obviously, but go do that as a side hustle to you growing your business in essence. And in doing that, this farmer's agent's going to hit their 15 apps per quarter. They're never going to miss that bonus again. They're always going to be on the leaderboards. And what agent out there doesn't like being on the leaderboards? All of them like being on the leaderboards. They all want to make toppers. They all like, let's be real. So you're always going to hit that. Oh, and by the way, we're going to increase the premium on the book and the persistency on the book in doing all this.
So they would write for farmers, and then they would also write on the side for themselves, right?
Yeah. And to keep it compliant at the end of the day, because if they contract with farmers as a sub producer or under what is farmers called their protege program, they have to go captive at that point, which kind of kills you. You're dead in the water versus, hey, I'm not here to make any representations, warranties, or anything like that. I'm here to do the legwork. At the end of the day, the agent's going to run the quote. The agent's providing the proposal. All I'm doing as the independent is I'm talking life insurance in general. So I'm educating you on life insurance in general. We might be talking about like a mortgage protection solution. I'm educating you in general. And by the way, here's the proposal your agent prepared. If you want to take steps forward, like I'll help facilitate that. But the independent's not going to take those steps forward. The independent's going to link the client back up with that agent's office so they can take the application and get it into underwriting, right? So there's Like I say, a few key things we want to make sure we hit so we stay compliant. We don't want to piss off farmers. We don't want to piss off any of the carriers.
Right.
But as long as we're able to do those things and make sure we're not getting anybody in trouble, it becomes ethical, profitable business for everybody, the client included. They're picking up coverages that they wouldn't otherwise have because their agent isn't good at helping them understand how imperative those coverages are, if that makes sense.
Do you do that for other carriers?
Yeah. We've helped agents with State Farm, American National. I don't know. We can countrywide.
Super cool.
Yeah. How it doesn't matter. We've come up on compliance. We've had run-ins with compliance all over the place. But at the end of the day, when we're able to document, because that's another thing we teach is document, disclose. When we're able to provide all that evidence that, hey, we're not doing anything in a non-compliant manner. This is how we're doing it. And here's every specific example. Oh, and by the way, y'all are making a crap ton more money because of what we're teaching people to do. We've been able to overcome those barriers every time.
I'm sure that it requires a significant amount of educating to move the agent past or into that conversation and then get them to understand and accept it, because it's with all respect. And I'm thinking of myself in the past and the way that I approached entrepreneurial situations. Like I was very closed-minded as an agent to opportunities that came, for compliance, right? There's a lot of fear from the carrier. So always very careful about that. But then just from I have to put out money for, it's like, it seems like for some reason, as soon as you become an agent, you're so tight with the money.
Right.
And then that's what makes it tight for growth, right? You just can't grow if you don't invest. And I don't know where I'm going here with that. What do you see as the obstacles that they put up? And then how do you walk through that?
Yeah. The first one is pride and control. Everybody's like, I don't want to give you access to you're going to steal it. And it's like, well, sometimes you're not going to overcome that obstacle. When I'm teaching agents to go make these partnerships, we actually have a whole program built around it. It's called Once Your Client, Always Your Client. We've got good looking PDFs and everything. Like this is some real shit. But the first thing we teach them is this is sales like anything else. You have to go sell an agency on working with you, right? You're not going to walk into 5 agencies and come out with 3 of them wanting to work with you. Like if I'm cold calling, I expect to make 100 dials in order to get 10 to 20 people to even pick up the phone. And out of that 20 people who even pick up the phone, I expect maybe 20% of that to even be willing to have a conversation with me. 20, maybe 30%, right? And out of the ones who are even willing to have a conversation, how many are actually like it's a game of numbers, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to go recruiting agencies and I want 3 agencies, I might have to go talk to 50 agencies to find 3. And people get scared of that hard work. There's a lot of really great things about insurance agents, and a lot of insurance agents aren't scared of work, but too many are. They came into this business for the time and money freedom, but guess what? Time and money freedom is a purchased commodity. You have to go make some freaking money so you can buy that back for yourself.
Yep.
It's not inherent because you have a freaking LLC. Such a pet peeve of mine, if you can't tell. But so we'll teach them that, number one, because if you walk through any orchard, no matter how bad a lot of the apples are, you're going to find some good apples in there too. You will find low-hanging fruit. So that's the first thing. Maybe you weren't the person to partner with, but the dude next door was, or the gal next door was, right? And then as we move into other obstacles, we have things like, again, compliance. Hey, here's some case studies on compliance. We've actually been able to overcome that. We're not going to do anything that's uncompliant. I'm worried about my client's data. Hey, we are Privacy Act and HIPAA compliant. You're Privacy Act and HIPAA compliant, and we're going to put a Privacy Act and HIPAA compliant contract between us, protecting your client's data. You're not distributing client data outside of your organization, right? You're just repurposing it through your own organization. We are coming in as an extension of you. So think of it less as another business taking your business and doing something with it, and more of a fractional resource, right? So it's no different than having a fractional CFO, a fractional COO, a fractional marketer, right? And that's all it is. Like, it's crazy how many agencies are willing to hire somebody to go knock doors, but they're not
Right.
willing to hire somebody to rework their own data. And that data, have y'all ever watched the show? What is it? Gold Rush?
Oh, I thought you were going to say 90 Day Fiance.
Oh no. Gone in 60 seconds. No,
Is that
Gold
where
Rush.
they go and
Yeah.
what do they
pretty
set up those
crazy.
machines everywhere to go through the
Yeah,
dirt?
so they have two primary modalities of finding gold. Okay, the first is they have these big screens. They scoop it out of. They just scoop dirt up, run it through there, and they find nuggets. Okay, and that's what they kind of do like the first 1/3 of the season. But then, like, these guys spent millions just to be on that land, and then all the equipment and everything, and they find a couple $1 million worth of gold that way. You know, the big easy nuggets. But then they're out of land. They scooped all the topsoil up or whatever. And they're only like 1/3 of the way through the season. So what do the whole rest of the season? They run the same damn dirt through a finer and finer filter over and over and over again. And the majority, you get to the end of the season and they dump out all their gold and they weigh it out. And it's like they've got like 4 big nuggets. We'll call them McNuggets. They've got, a couple smaller nuggets or whatever, a handful of smaller nuggets, but the majority of their weight, like 80% of the weight they have in gold, is gold flakes they got from refining the dirt, from rerunning the dirt through a finer filter, right? So my point is, like, especially with captives, and y'all know this when it comes to like quotes not sold, rerunning quotes not, same shit. But it's crazy how many agents are willing to go buy new leads, go buy more leads, go buy this, go do that, and not invest a single damn dollar into working the dirt they've already worked when the majority of the gold is there. Hiring somebody as a fractional resource to work that dirt for you, number one, it's not an automatically non-compliant. They're just compliance measures we need to meet, right? And then we move on from there. And the reality is the same tools that found you the nuggets, those are not the same tools that are going to get you the majority of the gold. And if you are a nugget creating machine, like most agencies are, you are not equipped to fine filter for that. You need to hire a fine filter. Like, you got to switch out the equipment 1/3 of the way through the season to find all the extra gold. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love the analogy. We are the process that we use in our agencies to sort through leads is what we call the telefunnel, and we have a bunch of dialing specialists and a process that sifts through the leads. And we always tell people it's the same thing. Like, most people think internet leads suck because they're getting the nuggets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those nuggets will go to somebody else because they're the ones that will close on 3 calls. But it really, where it picks up is when you're on the 30th call and you start closing the 30th to 60th dial. Those people the retention on those people are fantastic because it takes 30 to 60 dials to reach them. So, like, being able to have the right tools in place to close all the other leads, the leads down the funnel, is where the gold is. That's where so I love that analogy because it's like once a principle works for something, usually you can apply it to like everything.
I love
It's a
that you
good
guys
principle.
are telling people to call folks that much. It's not annoying. It's pleasantly persistent as long as you're not a douchebag about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, the difference is, are you being a douchebag or are you not? Because you told me to call you, so here I am.
Yeah. Dude,
You know?
my favorite thing is, and I tell our agents this all the time, is like, nothing's better than when you call somebody too much and they go, first off, everybody's worried that they call them too much and that they'll complain. 1 out of 10,000 people complain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, once that person complains, like, dude, I love what I do, and this is that important. I believe that this is that important for you. You can apply it to any kind of insurance. And if you don't want me to call anymore, you need to let me know, because I have a duty to make sure that you get covered.
Yeah.
Because that's how passionate I am about this. Most agents aren't that passionate about it, but I am. But if you don't want me to ever call you again, you don't see the importance like I do, tell me to never call. I'll take you off my list. I'll never call you again.
I love that.
Who get
I
mad
think
at that?
so many agents are afraid of, number one, the work, But like you
Yeah.
said, if you have the tools on the front side, the work it's not any harder. If I'm going to make 200 dials today, what does it matter if I'm dialing this person for the 18th time or dialing that person for the first time? Like my job is to make the 200 dials because I know the numbers
Right.
work. If I dial 200 a day, everything else works out, right?
The only difference is the cost of leads, right? Because
You
at
know,
that point, you're only
huge difference to cost
Yeah.
of leads. And then the other fear that they have is things like FCC compliance, and you have all these different. They're afraid. Well, what if I get that complaint? Well, again, if you have the right system from day one, like any basic CRM, for God's sake, like I can show that they opted in, they asked for my call, and I called 30 times, and then they complained, but they never once bothered to give me any kind of notification that said, please don't reach out to me. They could have answered the phone. They could have texted. They could have emailed. They could have done any number of things, but they didn't. I'm fine. When you have all that data cached in one quick, easy area, and you can just export that to compliance officers, it's not some big, you hear these horror stories of I was under investigation for months and I had to give them every client ever. Number one, no, I didn't, because I proved it so damn well with the one client. They were like, yeah, it's a waste of our time. But number two, even if they wanted every client ever or every phone call ever, great. It's all in the same damn CRM. Let me export everything instead of one thing. Have fun with it, you know? So yeah, agents need to quit being afraid and just quit being cheap. Get the right tools. The right tools might cost you $100 or $200 a month, and then go to work.
And it multiplies the efforts, right? You're doing the work with the right tools, you should be doing 3 times the amount of work of somebody without the tools. And that's being generous. That's not, it's probably a lot more than that.
Oh, easily.
It seems like as agents, we operate on emotion a lot instead of the logic, right? I mean, we have every single number, right? We know how many dials it takes to get to whatever. We know all of the things, right? And we know all of the data from the carrier. We can create the equation and be for all intents and purposes, pretty damn accurate, right?
Right.
I wish I remember the line from my cousin Vinny. What is it? Dead on balls accurate. Is that right? Yeah. So it's remarkable knowing that, and then understand that we're in a recurring model, right? Like what you just said about the persistency and the profitability, like it's not just, oh yeah, you're a little more profitable. It's significant, right? Like every increase in retention, it leads to a significant amount more of renewals. Like if you have an 80% retention, you have 5 renewals, right? If you have a 90% retention, you're at 10, you double between 9, between 80 and 90%. So it's just huge to understand like those additional lines, whether it's, you're adding that lifeline, whether somebody's doing mono and then they don't bundle it. It's so critical to do that.
Well, and then reinvestment, like it is so easy to cross sell. So like one of the first things I teach they could be life only agents to do is go partner with a PNC agent. The easiest cross sell for life insurance is off a PNC, because you have so many, like when nobody ever woke up horny about life insurance, right? Like you've never been rampantly aroused because somebody might get a check when you die.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we have to create better conversations. Those conversations are so easy to create off of the data we have when we know we have a property casualty client. For example, I have a homeowner who has a mortgagee clause. I know that they have a mortgage. If they have a mortgage, they have need for mortgage protection insurance, life insurance. And they might already have life insurance, but do they have mortgage protection life insurance, right? That is an easy to create conversation. And that cross-sell, like it is so easy. So you're already there. It's selling the homeowners. You're explaining coverages, and you're like, "Hey, we've got, coverage A dwelling, this and that and the other, and by the way, you're covered for, you have cash on hand. You're just screwed because if that burns in a fire, nobody believes you." And you're explaining all this other stuff, and you get all the way to the bottom, and you're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I noticed you have a mortgage. Most of my clients feel like they would like their mortgage protection insurance to protect somebody from more than just the bank. The mortgage protection insurance you may have through the bank, through your escrow, only protects the bank. I hope you don't mind. I took the liberty to put together this quote, it's $32.12 a month to guarantee that if you choke on a cigarette butt tomorrow and you lose your ability to pay your mortgage, your family gets to keep your slice of the American dream. Do you feel like you work hard enough? You want me to include that as part of your plan or not? Like, that's the cross sell. It can happen that fast, right? And if they're like, yeah, and you're all it is from there, great. We do this for a special kind of life insurance policy. I'm going to have to ask you a couple health questions. You might have to shit in a shoebox. I don't know. We'll see how crazy it gets, but we'll get that added on there, right? So easy cross sells. By the way, that pitch on a homeowner's client, it's like 30+% closing. Like, it's so simple, so easy. Okay. So it doesn't take a lot of time. And then a lot of times property casualty agents aren't going to cross sell this because they're like, oh, it's tedious. And I'm getting to where the money makes sense here in just a second. That's easy. And then when I set up the right system, I don't spend 45 minutes on the phone asking them, did you have rickets? Did your daddy have rickets? Like, no, I shoot them a link to, we use surveys. We have a really well put together survey. So page after page instead of a single form, right? And it asks them like 99% of the questions on a life insurance application. They fill that out. There's a little disclaimer. This isn't the app. I'm going to use these answers to fill out the app and send you the formal app to review and e-sign in just a minute. So we just shoot them a link. They fill that out, comes back. I have one of my team members take a few minutes to copy and paste those answers into an e-app, and away we go. We're like 10 minutes at this point into selling a life policy. It's a $400 a year premium. That may not be much, but guess what? A $4,000 a year premium, it's the same amount of time invested. It's the same thing. So we do all that, and now figure this. The average mortgage protection policy, for example, is around $1,200 per year. Why? Because we're not insuring 20-year-olds for $100,000, right? We're on a 10-year term. We're doing like 15 to 30-year term on 250 to 500,000 on a 30, 40, 50-year-old. It's typically $1,200 per year. And if we take an average agent commission, let's just say $1,000 per year, or $1,000 up front, right, on an agent commission, or let's say 500 up front even. Let's say all you make is $500 on it. How much property casualty premium did you need to sell to make $500 this year? At 10%, it's 5,000, right? At higher percentages, it's less. But what you are doing with that 10 minutes of work, like, it took you an hour's worth of work, 2 hours worth of work to find, call through, quote, bind, follow up on property casualty. And in 15 to 30 minutes, we just doubled your average account revenue for the first year. Your ability to reinvest and buy more leads, invest in better systems, hire more people, literally doubles with a sliver of additional work.
Yeah, 100%. And the revenue's so high on life and annuities. Like, yeah. I mean, coming from the P&C world, you know? And to your point, it's just so much more work. It's so much work to get that person than it is to cross over.
And that's the point, right? Why would you not just rerun the dirt? Just run it through a finer filter. And if you don't have the bandwidth or the capacity, why wouldn't you bring somebody in to do that same thing? And if you're going to bring somebody in, why do you care if they're part-time for you, part-time for their own agency versus part-time for you, part-time for the General Mills factory?
I would actually, you know what's bananas about this whole thing? Now, I'm not going to do this, so if you're listening, carrier, don't worry about it. But like, it would, I've worked with a lot of life guys for the company, the carrier that I guess I in partnership with, but there's not much incentive for, I mean, there is incentive for them, but they're freaking lazy, dude. They're not like
the one I was told not to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can bleep that, by the way, but dude, even that carrier, there's a ton of incentive because their growth model, they can grow way, way faster through acquisition, right? I've got a buddy with them out of Vegas. They can grow way faster through acquisition, but they have to hit their percent of PIF every year on life insurance to
100%.
be allowed to acquire next year.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's
but what I'm saying is the agency owner does, you're 100% right. The agency owner has a huge incentive. But what I'm saying is like the life only agents that they're supposed to partner with.
Uh-huh.
So like if it's a life only agent for the captive carrier, that they're like the laziest people ever.
Yeah.
So to be able to use somebody outside of the carrier life agent that actually wants to kick some ass and work out a deal to make it beneficial on both sides should be allowed. Because
it should be.
It's a win-win.
It's discouraged, but we've been able to overcome, even in that scenario, we've been able to overcome that multiple times, even with home office involved. Just had to have the right protections and contracts and indemnity in place and things along those lines. But the incentive is there for the agent. The incentive's there for the company.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they are incentivized to want to make it work. For those, I know some really, really great life specialists in those type of capacities. I know way more. For every one great one that I know, I probably know, 10, 20 lazy ones that are like, hey, if it's not a lay down sell, I'm not going to follow up. I'm not going to. But now you have these agencies who want to grow through acquisition, reliant on that person not following up to be able to grow through acquisition. It's a lame duck model that could use some improvement, in my opinion. But yeah, the ability to use additional resources goes a long way. One of my biggest points I contend is that if they were to hire a part-time person, let's say I was an agency and I hired a part-time, you can call them whatever you want, CSR, marketer, whatever, to just call my book of business and just put my life specialist on appointments, right? But it was part-time. Like, hey, they're coming in 2-3 hours a day. My company would not balk. They wouldn't even bat an eyelash if that person's other job was at the grocery store. They wouldn't care. The only reason they care is because their other job is not at the grocery store, and it's this scarcity mindset. And it's amazing to me how many people want to preach abundance and then live scarce. You don't get to live in the two worlds at the same time. And so a lot of times it just takes a conversation. I've found this as I've not only been a captive and an independent, but I've been a top producer on both sides. And I've gotten to sit not just at leadership summits and field leader meetings and those things, but I've gotten to sit on boards helping design product, gotten to sit on marketing boards for carriers and do some cool things I never thought I'd be able to. And here's what I found. 100%, there's always the rule of thumb, and that's what gets preached. There's always the exception to the rule, and that's what we have to guard ourselves from because too many people want to take advantage of that, right? But there's pretty much nothing unless it is flat out illegal at the state or federal level that is not up for negotiation. If you're a producer, you have a business plan, a business model, and you can show how a company is protected and edified through what you're trying to implement. You just got to be intentional about it. You got to be an entrepreneur, somebody who creates value where it didn't previously exist. Sometimes that means putting all those great ideas on paper and presenting it as opposed to a simple reseller. If all you're doing is reselling someone else's product, you're a reseller. And that's okay. That's a phenomenal thing to be. But yeah, if we want to start getting into these conversations and doing these things, we got to become entrepreneurial. And being entrepreneurial requires hard conversations backed with assets. So
I love it, man. That's mic drop right there. So tell us how we can get a hold of you.
No, I'm joking.
Stay away.
Yeah.
Stay away.
I don't want to grow anymore. No, y'all can find me on just about every social media platform. I probably do the most on Facebook. My handle is the same everywhere at cporter389. Send me an email, carsonp@revagencysyndicate.com. That's REV, as in rev your engine, right? How else can you get old? Don't show up at my house. This is Idaho. We're a gun-toting state.
Well, and you're running around naked too, apparently.
Yeah, well, some people might enjoy that. I know you don't, but some people might.
Binoculars and in the bushes.
All sorts of creeps. All sorts of
It's
creeps.
disgusting.
The
Yeah.
bushes.
Cool,
But, yeah.
man. Carson, awesome hanging with you today. Appreciate it, man. I hope more people take this conversation a little bit more serious. We talked to a lot of captive, not just captive, but like P&C agents, and it's just like there's a huge opportunity with life, and it's not the easiest one to switch over but like, dude, just get involved. There's plenty of upside.
Oh yeah,
it's a no-brainer. It costs nothing, and it increases. It improves everything, and you make money.
Yeah, there's literally no.
I
downside.
like those kind of deals.
Literally no downside. So I appreciate y'all.
No extra work. Yeah, it is interesting, the scarcity thinking of like, oh, you're gonna mess my people up. It's like, dude, your people are messing your people up. Like a pro calling actually providing something that's going to be of value actually undoes what the people that work for you
what
do.
Sally did.
Yeah, what Sally did. Because Sally, damn, it's always Sally.
It is.
Sorry, Sally, if you're listening. All right.
And that's the pod.
And that's a podcast.